the Dialed In Angling podcast presented by OnX Fish, Fish USA, Ski-Doo, Runnings, Minnesota DNR, Strike Master Augers, 13 Fishing, L&M Fleet Supply, and DeWalt. Well, welcome back to this week's podcast. This week, we are talking with videographer, photographer, YouTuber, angler, ice angler. I don't know how to describe you, but Jay Siemens, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with us.
Oh, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me. I know we played checkers a little bit, trying to line up our schedules. You've been ice fishing lots, it sounds like.
Yeah, I've been all over the ice belt. The thing that I love about Dialed In Angling versus just guiding every day is the fact that I get to go check out all these cool ice places, all these places across the ice belt that I've either fished before or, some in some instances never fished before in my life, but always wanted to go to. And yeah, it gets me out of my little region here in northern Minnesota to, kind of explore different things. As a guide, it seems like, and you could probably relate to this, you get roped into doing the same thing over and over and over, whether it's walleyes and perch or whatever it is. For me, it happened to be, Mille Lacs Lake, Winnebagosh, Leech Lake, kind of that whole realm where you get into that mindset and you do that every single day and you're chasing those bites every single day within kind of that confines of guiding. And what I love about Dialed In Angling is, doing panfish trips or, like I've been doing a lot of as of the last couple of years is chasing lake trout or, whatever it may be, big pike. But I get out of that realm of just ice guiding every single day, kind of that grind of ice guiding. And even though I'm still ice guiding, so I'm doing the Dialed In Angling deal and ice guiding. So I'm kind of back in both those worlds and I jump back and forth, and it's been a long season, but I absolutely love it. I love to fish. So, at the end of the day, as tired as I am, it motivates me to get up the next day and just get after it.
Well, you got to go fishing every day. So,
Yeah, right. I mean, there could be way worse things to do in life. I know in the past, when I was in college and I was guiding part-time up at Lake of the Woods in the Northwest Angle, and fishing tournaments and stuff, I dreamt of doing it full time, but then how do you go from point A to point B? And so, I'm sure you dealt with that in your career.
Yeah. I mean, guiding was the easiest foot in the door. I think I was 15 when I started guiding. Didn't have my drivers. And I remember my parents had to drop me off at the lodge and like, hey, here you go for the summer. And how many years, how old were you when you started guiding?
Right around 18, I started fishing tournaments, walleye tournaments with my dad and my Uncle Gary and stuff when I was, 13, 14 years old, but I didn't start guiding till I was actually 18 years old. But same thing, like I started guiding, I had my driver's license, but I didn't even have a pickup truck. I started guiding for the resort, so I couldn't even pull my own boat around.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So what made you take the leap, let's say from guiding to videographer, photography? I mean, what kind of drove you into certain aspects of what you currently do? I mean, I don't need the entire backstory, but I think a lot of our listeners would love to hear kind of that leap. Everyone has their own unique story and their way into the fishing world. Can I hear just a little bit about yours, Jay?
Yeah. The way I got into photography was I was guiding at these amazing, remote lodges in Canada. And I want to take pictures of what was around me, the wildlife, the fish my guests were catching, the northern lights, all that stuff. So that's when I, picked up the camera. And then after, that was 4 or 5 years of guiding, I connected with a guy named Aaron Weeb. We became great friends. And I was going to go to photography school 3 days before school was supposed to start. Aaron was like, hey man, do you want to drop out of school and start filming a fishing show with me? And I was like, sure. Yeah. I really looked up to Aaron. So I dropped out of school, told my parents I'm not going to photography school anymore. I'm going to try filming this YouTube show. And that was 2011 when people didn't really know what YouTube was or if it was a viable career. And, did that with Aaron for a number of years and kind of built my own media business at the side, filming, stuff for tourism and boating companies and, that sort of stuff. And then yeah, 2017 is when I started my own YouTube channel, and it became a full-time gig. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I guess it's been like half my life, I guess, since 2011, so 15 years, shy of half my life has been dedicated to either filming or, producing YouTube videos, which is crazy. Apparently, I heard some statistic that more kids want to be YouTubers than want to be astronauts or something like that. Like when I grew up, the kids wanted to be an NHL player, an astronaut or something. And apparently a YouTuber is now what kids want to be. So I'm definitely blessed to be able to, call myself that. And like you said, the freedom and the flexibility of making YouTube videos. It's not like TV years ago where you had the constraints of 13 episodes and 22 minutes. Now you can kind of do whatever you want. So
Yeah. I like that format. I like the fact in your story that you told your parents, like, hey, I'm going to quit school and I'm going to do this, because I can relate. I mean, I told my parents the same thing, like I'm going fishing. And, my dad was cool with it. He actually helped me out a lot over the years. I mean, he got me going back then. Obviously, my dad was fishing a lot of tournaments. And so, I had a leg up on a lot of people because I went to go guide, and I had the nicest rods, back then, Pure Fishing. It was Berkeley, and I had all these Gary Roach lightning rods and all this fancy gear. But my dad just was like, kind of fed my passion, and he always believed in me. And he was like, okay, well, if you're going to do it, then you got to go for it, 100%. And, he was behind me. How were your parents? Was it a shock for them, or were they like, you know what, Jay, you do what you want, and we'll figure it out?
yeah, I was telling this story the other day to somebody, and I got emotional when I got to that part because my parents were, yeah, kind of like yours, just so supportive. And I remember them so clearly saying, like, Jay, school's always going to be there. School will be there. If this doesn't work out, I was 18, 19 at the time. So it was the time to take that leap. And I really looked up to Aaron, and I said, like, if someone's going to do it from our area, I think Aaron can do it. And it was just, yeah, such an interesting time of trying to figure out YouTube and trying to figure out, shooting and editing and all that stuff. So yeah, but very supportive parents. I just have so many stories of them. Like I remember one of my first times fishing with Aaron, and they like drove me to Winnipeg. We lived an hour south. And I'm like, hey, so there's this guy off this fishing message board. He said he would take me fishing tomorrow. You got to drop me off at his house at 3:30 in the morning. And maybe it's because I was the third child. I was the youngest. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. But man, like looking back on it, I went fishing with so many strangers on the internet. And maybe times have changed, and I know there's still some of that online, but it was amazing. Like some of those are still my closest friends that I stay in touch with. And thanks to my parents, just I guess, being trusting and just supporting it. They liked fishing, but weren't like avid anglers by any means. But supportive from the start, and I hope I can be the same to my kids, whatever their hobby is.
That's cool. My parents were sort of the same way. I mean, they were always really supportive, and they always trusted me. I mean, like you said, back in the day, I used to go fishing all the time with all sorts of different people, not always telling my parents where I was going, but I would show up. I remember rolling in, I don't know, 10:30, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I was a teenager. So, a lot of parents probably thought their teenage boy was doing something not fishing, right?
Yeah.
I come rolling in. My mom is ticked. I mean, she's mad. I never called. I never told her where I was going. So, of course, my dad steps in. My dad's like, where were you? And I said, hey, Dad, I was fishing. It's a full moon, and the walleyes are running down by the river, and we were just wailing on them at the time with original floaters. I remember you couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
Because I grew up in the town of Moose Lake, I bought the town out of gold and black original floaters. And, so my dad's like cornering me, and I'm thinking I'm in trouble because I'm coming home late, and he's thinking I'm out drinking or doing whatever as a teenager. And I told him, I said, yeah, it's a full moon. The walleyes are down at the river, and we just stayed way too long. And he just looked at me and he's like, you were fishing the whole time? And I said, yeah, we were fishing the whole time. He's like, all right, you're not in trouble with your mom. I'll handle this. And so from then on, like, anything I was doing fishing, my dad knew I was all in. And so he always had my back. And
yeah, that's amazing.
That you need that support system. And to hear that from you, where your parents are like, school can wait. You pursue this dream. I mean, I think a lot of kids need that nowadays. There's a lot of kids that, like you said, want to be YouTubers, anglers. I get calls all the time where people are like, hey, I want to get into the fishing world. How do I go about it? I try to answer every single person I can because I was that kid at that point. And
Yeah.
somewhat to this day, I still feel like that kid. There's things I want to do in fishing. Like we touched on at the beginning of the podcast, I've been doing a ton of fishing the last few years where it might be something that might be a little bit out of my wheelhouse. And I've really kind of dove headfirst into it to try to figure out that type of bite in that situation. And I'm telling you, I could have told you a couple of years ago when it comes to ice fishing, like I know pretty much every aspect of ice fishing, but ever since forward facing sonar came around, now this opens up a whole other realm of what I like doing and using electronics. I've always loved electronics. But really over the last, I would say 5 years from open water to ice, ever since I got that first, pan optics unit, I'm like all in on technology and I guess what I've wanted to learn and what I thought I knew about fishing really changed a lot. Patterns of fish. I mean, everything we read from, the linders to, up to YouTube videos that people posted prior to forward facing sonar. Kind of was out the door in a lot of situations. And also it's made me want to fish certain species a lot more. Like being up in your neck of the woods, for example, I love lake trout fishing. I've always loved lake trout fishing, but now with forward facing sonar, it's so hard to go back and do any other style of ice fishing after you've been lake trout fishing. I think it breaks you. And it's all I can think about. I lay in bed at night thinking about lake trout, and it's because of the forward facing sonar. It's because of the way you're fishing, the aggressive nature of lake trout. It drives me as an angler. It gets me out of bed. What are some of the things that you're up to right now, Jay, that get you out of bed? Like what you're really into, some of the fishing experiences you've got lined up, that sort of thing.
Man, yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of live scope and the learning tool and what's possible. What's new. I'm always trying to just check something off the list that I haven't done before. And even just the diversity, it's like I'm always thinking about, oh, what's the next international trip? There's so many things in Canada that I haven't done that are, way closer than that. Like this summer, I went to Vancouver Island and did some offshore stuff, did some, halibut and cod and salmon. And then this late summer, I went to the Rocky Mountains and did bull trout and cutthroat trout, two things I hadn't done, right? So I'm thinking like for ice fishing, what's the next thing I can try to do through the ice? And, you end up in some pretty remote places too. I went on a trip to Iqaluit, to Nunavut a couple years ago, and we caught some cod through the ice, which was pretty cool. But I heard, legends of this lake that has 80 to 100-pound cod. So now I'm just like, how do I get back there in the winter? And it's all that different stuff, but it's a trade-off with a young family now and living in Kenora. It's like there's amazing fishing in my backyard on Lake of the Woods and all the surrounding lakes. So it's like I don't have to travel to the other side of the world. So it's finding that balance of, being around, being home, being with the family, but also, every once in a while doing those trips that are important to me, important to, what I do for work and to keep it fresh for myself and for viewers. So I'm ice fishing for, 2 more weeks, and then I'm hopping on a plane. I'm going to Netherlands to fish for giant pike and those big European perch. So that's something that's been on my list for a while. So I'm quite excited to do that. So it'll be like kind of a break in the ice fishing season and hop in a boat for 5 days. And then, I'm excited. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time. And I love perch fishing around here. So to go, maybe have a crack at a 5-pound perch in Europe will be pretty wild.
Yeah, absolutely. I watch those videos all the time, like on Instagram, and you see those giant perch that they're catching over there. I'm a huge fan of perch fishing. I always have been since I've been a kid. I think, the listeners that tune into Dialed In Angling know that I'm a nut when it comes to perch fishing. I will, go all over the globe to chase perch. And that's one species that I'm like, I've got to do that. Have you ever done the Idaho deal? Gone down to Cascade and done the Idaho
I haven't,
deal?
but I've read and watched enough about it. It looks pretty incredible. You've done that a couple times, I'm sure.
It's been a long time coming. I've chased perch all over, Minnesota, Manitoba, Ontario, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, you name it, Great Lakes. I have never done the Cascade deal. People ask me all the time, and I got to do it. But I would say the European perch might break you from ever wanting to even go to Cascade. Once you catch those 5-pound perch,
Yeah.
I gotta believe that definitely is a bucket list thing for sure.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
Are you a big Olympics guy, Jay?
I mean, I'm excited for some Canadian Olympic hockey. Beyond
Yeah.
that, I'll flip it on once in a while if I'm around. But yeah,
Not
I don't know.
like interpretive ice skating. You're not into that stuff, or?
No, that's never been a thing. But I do appreciate a good hockey game when it's a medal game. That's for sure.
I'm a huge fan, well, of the Olympics, but more so like you. Like I like hockey. I'll turn into curling. I'm not a huge curling guy, but I like curling on also some of the biathlons, a decathlon, where they ski, shoot,
Yeah.
whatever. I think that's super intriguing. I'll kind of tune in, but I'm sort of just watching, just casually, right? I'm not diving head first, but I have seen I guess some things on Facebook as far as like, the U.S. team for ice fishing and whatnot. I know it's not an Olympic deal, but it's sort of intriguing to me. I guess I've never followed that stuff. Have you ever watched any of that? I know the only reason I bring it up is I've watched some of your videos where you guys have competitions, as different teams. And
Yep.
Have you ever watched any of the competitive fishing? I guess I'm not super versed on that.
Yeah, I've watched a bit. I mean, I remember there's a conversation, and I think something about if it's a human powered event, it could be in the Olympics. So there's been talks about kayak fishing potentially becoming an Olympic sport before, like, motorized boats and bass fishing, something like that. But that would be, an interesting thing. But yeah, I like the competitive stuff. I like I like watching a bit of all that stuff. Like it's amazing just seeing different parts of the world when they compete. Europe has some really good fishing competitions, and even that the match fishing, the carp stuff where they get assigned a lot, and that's where they have to fish for the next couple hours. Like I don't know, I like the variety, right? I'm not a bass guy or a muskie guy. I will fish for everything, and that's kind of what I've tried to build my channel off of is just the variety, right? There's I like how you can take stuff from one scenario and bring it into another, right? May it be like with photography or with fishing, right? There's things where I learned from photographing weddings that has become very important for me, photographing fishing type stuff, and then things that I learned musky fishing that has translated into walleye fishing and all that stuff. So that's why I like sampling, a bit of everything, right? But the competitive stuff is fun. I have fished my share of tournaments, but my extent of competitive angling now is the fun YouTube stuff where I get to pick who's part of it. We can make it fun, make it more of a whole experience rather than all about more than just catching a couple big fish. Make it something goofy, something fun, something that maybe an angler that's just getting into the sport can appreciate, even if they're not hardcore. So.
There is nothing quite like Minnesota winter. Whether you want to try ice fishing, ice skating, or ice boating, make sure you know the risks and how to play safe on the ice. Measure ice thickness frequently and never go out alone. Always wear a life jacket or float coat and have ice picks readily accessible in case you fall through. Playing on the ice can be fun, but it's never 100% safe. Learn how you could play safe before you go out. Safety is always in season. A message from the Minnesota DNR.
OnX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Quickly filter lakes by species, then select trophy potential, high abundance, keeper potential, or high stocking effort to find the fish you are after in the size and the numbers you are trying to catch. Download from the App Store today to get research tools for the serious anglers and beginners alike, giving you the data to target the right lakes and the confidence to get there. Use tools like recent imagery, fishing hotspot data, or the best-in-class weather features that call out current wind, weather, barometer, moon phase, majors and minors, along with precip and more. OnX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you'd never known existed. Download OnX Fish Midwest today, the app that is changing the game on ice and open water.
Runnings Home, Farm, and Outdoor stores are celebrating 78 years, serving 90 local communities across the Upper Midwest, the Northeast, and America's Heartland. Runnings has everything you and your family need for your home, on the farm, and in the outdoors. Lawn and garden, hardware, farm and ranch supplies, sporting goods, housewares, snacks, and everything for your pets. Go to runnings.com to find one of the 90 locations near you or shop online anytime at runnings.com. Runnings, your home, farm, and outdoor store.
I'm with you. I'm the same way. I'm a multi-species angler, but I do like watching, certain aspects of bass tournaments. Maybe it's the classic or something like that, but I'm not a huge, consumer of just watching competitive fishing on TV. I know I sat next to a gentleman on the plane one time. I think I was coming back from ICAST, and he was from England. And all he does is competitive carp tournaments, where he was explaining the ins and outs of fishing competitively in Europe on all these carp tournaments, and how, they get their spot on shore to, it's all done from shore. How they set the table with, whatever they're going to be fishing with, and basically chumming the water with it. And, at first when the guy started talking to me, I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not that into carp fishing. But the more he explained it and the passion that he had behind that, I found it intriguing. And I listened to the guy for almost 2 hours. He talked the entire flight about, competitive carp fishing, and, just with the all aspects of it. And you know what, like you said, you learn a lot as an angler by fishing different species. And I can take fishing scenarios that I've done for walleye fishing in the Midwest and then use that technique when I was saltwater fishing, or vice versa. I've learned different knots from saltwater captains or wherever that I brought back home that I'm like, I'm going to use that. And that's what drives me as an angler. I know you have sort of a different layer when it comes to videography and photography and slow motion shots. And I'm just now diving into that world. Obviously, with Dialed In Angling, I don't have to worry about shooting that stuff, but I like seeing certain things. And the interesting part about me is, I guess I'm a little bit old school in the sense where, I used to love like recording all the old In Fishermans back in the day. Like Saturday morning, I would record In Fisherman when I was a kid, and get In Fisherman magazine and stuff. And it wasn't until really YouTube came around where I started watching more fishing videos, other than, In Fisherman when I was a kid. I never really watched any other, fishing TV or anything like that. And even now, like, I don't DVR a lot of other fishing shows. And so YouTube is still where I get a lot of my content. And now, of course, Instagram and Facebook Reels. My attention span's a lot shorter than it used to be. So it seems like I'm scrolling through a lot of different content for all sorts of different species, more on Instagram with, the reels I get in the morning. I spend the mornings, if I'm having coffee, if I have a little bit of downtime before I have to race out to work or get emails done or charge batteries or load gear, I will sit and watch, YouTube reels. And most of the, what is fed to me is obviously fishing related content. And, I've gotten a lot from just short little snippets of videos from bass anglers fishing plastics that I then in turn used for walleye fishing. And so, I'm the same way as you. I think being a multi-species angler, you learn a lot about, just a lot of things going on. And now, obviously, with forward-facing sonar units, you see a lot, you learn a lot, you learn about everything that, is going on down there, from, predator-prey relationships to the entire food web throughout the summer and winter. I'm getting into using, all sorts of different deucers and really fine tuning my units for all sorts of different species. Not to keep going back to lake trout fishing, but if I had to classify certain species that, really when it comes to forward facing sonar are like the most exciting to catch on forward facing sonar, I would have to say in the winter months for sure, lake trout. But open water is where I really, really love lake trout fishing, and just fine tuning those units, especially in a little bit deeper water. That's what drives me, man. It's making sure that I can see my bait, track my bait, using different baits to catch different fish. It's what keep me awake at night. I mean, I've literally gotten up in the middle of the night and jotted down notes of like, okay, I need to do this, or I need to switch to a saltwater deucer here. Oh, this is why that's working because of that. What are some of the things like that goes through Jay Siemens' head after you've either recorded something or had a fishing experience? I mean, are there certain things where you're like, I got to do this next time, and then it comes to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the constant, just constantly wanting to, I don't know, just try something different. Just try to keep it fresh and try to get, I love capturing live scope footage and underwater footage and all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I just think about all of it all the time. I'm always thinking about the next video idea, and more so even than what the fish is, just thinking about what's the angle going to be? How am I going to keep this fresh? And what's the challenge for me? Right. But yeah, I do think about lake trout a lot.
I wonder if they think about me as much as I think about them. I honestly, it's funny because every scenario that I go into lake trout fishing, whether it's ice fishing, open water, I always think, okay, I know exactly how I'm going to do this, what baits I'm going to use. And then you get into that scenario and you're like, oh, they want something completely different. They're feeding on something different. It's just, you guys are blessed where you live in your area around Kenora. You're not that far from some killer lake trout fishing just in your own backyard. But then if you want to venture up to northern Manitoba, wherever, I mean, you got some of the best lake trout fishing on the planet.
Yeah, you're talking about getting spoiled on Lakers, where I guided for a number of years in northern Saskatchewan. Wollaston Lake Lodge has just dinosaurs up there. So I have been, blessed to have a couple of those in my boat, and it definitely has ruined me for lake trout fishing around here. But then you just try to catch them in a different way, or catch them with someone that hasn't caught lake trout before. It's like you try to share the experience with somebody else, right? Like I've caught some big ones up north, but I stayed in an ice castle this last week with my 3-year-old boy, and he got to see lake trout for the first time and helped me pull it in on the tip up, and that makes it all new and fresh again, right? So it's not all about the biggest fish. It's like what's a new scenario I can experience this or share it with somebody.
Yeah, I can relate as a dad. I got rejuvenated, and I remember this happening to my dad when it came to deer hunting or fishing. My dad was always like a super passionate angler. He was the first one up in the morning at fish camp or deer camp. Couldn't wait to get out there. And then as he got older, he was not as, I don't want to say not as passionate, but he wasn't up at 3-4 in the morning having coffee, pacing the floor, getting ready. He was more laid back, took his time. But then when I got into fishing as a kid, it sort of revitalized him, and he just was like all in again. And I saw that happening with me as my kids got older, not only just wanting to experience something for myself, but then wanting to show them how to do it. And, to see my son now as a teenager and my daughter, to take, they go on trips on their own, they take their friends out fishing, just all of that, to see that as a dad, where they're not just doing it with me, but doing it on their own, then,
that's cool.
Then I sort of like fuel that passion. Like my son and I have tons of conversations about, maps, whether it's on X maps or whatever, forward facing sonar, he's all in, of course, he gets to use all my equipment and he's got his own, but, he dives headfirst into this stuff. So then he's recording stuff that he's seeing and showing me on his phone. And it's pretty cool, man. As a dad, and I geek out of that over that stuff anyway. So, he'll call me and I'll still be at work, whether it's dialed in angling or guiding, and he'll be like, "Man, you won't believe the fish we're on today. The schools of crappies, and we're catching these big fish that are right up underneath the ice." And he's sort of explaining these scenarios that are unfolding as he's fishing. It gets me excited about it, and so. When it comes to video content, whether it's content you put out or, anything that I see, what I gravitate towards is something that gets me excited. And generally speaking, it doesn't have to be like this really well polished deal. It could just be a concept of something cool. And
Oh, it can be filmed with your cell phone. Yeah, I think
yeah,
people get
absolutely.
caught up. People get caught up in the gear, and I just, like you're saying, people asking for advice. It's like, I'm just like, hey, just the concept is king. That film it with your phone, right? Like some of my clips that have gone, viral, if you want to call it viral, have been filmed with my iPhone because they're real and they're in the moment, and you don't always have the big camera available. And even if you could film a full 20-minute video with your iPhone. I know people that shoot and edit everything on their phone, and you can upload it for free. So it's like, yeah, it's an amazing time we live in. I don't think there's any reason to get caught up in slow motion or drones I mean, that's what I love. That's, I feel like kind of my niche too, is that sort of production level, but doesn't need to be, right? Everyone's got a story to tell. And
right. Yeah. And I do appreciate good videography and I love cool shots. I think that's where, the onset of drones and just high quality video production. I do appreciate some of that. And as it gets into a really good storyline or a good fishing scenario, I will tend to watch, a lot more. I want to throw a curveball your way as far as asking you about AI. Where do you think things are going with AI when it comes to video production or, certain fishing scenarios? Because I think personally, I like to view things that are real, and I like to try to, I guess, me personally, I try to sort out, what's AI, what's not. What are your thoughts on, kind of the direction where things are going as it pertains to AI?
I mean, I think there's definitely people use the term AI slop. There's lots of reels that are AI generated online, and I don't know, they gain a bit of traction, but I think it's it's however you want to use the tools, right? I use AI all the time in my life. I don't think it's ever going to replace a video editor. I think it's going to help. It's going to make some things easier. It's going to help with the audio and the color and that. But at the end of the day, there's still that human aspect, like the comedic timing. I don't think AI will ever be able to nail the comedic timing, or maybe they'll get some of that stuff right. But I still think that human aspect is important. But yeah, I think there's going to be a time where you can tell AI, it's like, hey, it's midsummer. I'm walleye fishing on Lake of the Woods. Where are the walleye going to be? And it could tell you, it can answer those questions for you, right? I use it for regulations a lot of the time. Just it'll scrub through the entire regulations book and find it. Obviously, you want to double check that it's right, but there's just so many situations where it saves me a ton of time. And I mean, I love it. I love technology. It's definitely saturating, Instagram and YouTube with a lot of that AI slop, like I was saying. But I think as long as I think the cream will always rise to the top, the stuff that, there's been the effort put in. And I know I've heard that YouTube is going to maybe not monetize things that are strictly AI created. So
sure. Yeah,
that's probably good.
I'm with you. I use AI a lot for research purposes or fixing certain things. I'm not creating content and just throwing it into a AI program and having it spit it out. But I definitely like using AI as far as for fixing or for searching for things. But you do have to definitely follow up with anything that's AI generated. You were talking about Saskatchewan. I bought a Saskatchewan license, and I got home from guiding and, it's 10 o'clock at night. I need to buy my license because I'm heading off on this trip. So I just, the first thing on the Google search was license, punch it in. And I start doing it. And I'm like, gosh, this just doesn't seem right. I've bought licenses in provinces all across the states and different states. I'm like, this just seems weird what I'm entering in here. And, of course, I had already entered all my personal information, my credit card. I mean, chalk it up to just being tired, right? And so at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I entered all this information and long story short, I went back in and what I entered it in, it was some sort of outfit that will buy your license for you, whether it's hunting or fishing, And so then I started getting paranoid. I'm like, well, maybe it's a scam. Of course, looked at AI and they're like, yes, this is definitely a scam. So I'm like, oh, great. Now I got to cancel my credit card and all this. Ended up buying my license. And I was like, well, it's, 11 o'clock, midnight, I already packed all my stuff. I got to just shut it down for the day. I'll call my bank in the morning. If I had any issues with my credit card, I'll call the credit card company. I got this really nice email from this company saying, hey, we see you already bought your license online. Apologize for any mistake. Here's the refund of your money. Thanks for using our service. They couldn't have been more nice, but when I did the research on AI, they made it sound like it was like the biggest scam in the world and all this. So you definitely have to do your research yourself. But at 10 o'clock at night here, I'm literally, I feel like, one of my grandparents where I've been scammed, and I can't sleep at night. And so.
Yeah, there's a lot of those out there.
Right. But, come to find out, obviously they were a legit business and it was cool. It's peace of mind. I took off for my trip knowing that, it wasn't a scam. They gave me my money back and all was good with the world. So
that's good.
Well, yeah, Jay, let's talk a little bit about, just gear in general, particularly as it pertains to like Skidoo. I know both you and I use Skidoo products and, I'm a huge fan of the Skidoo Expedition. I've been running the 900 Ace this season. The responsiveness of the motor, just the way that thing is, handles, dragging a sled through the snow and slush, and the, I guess, fishing situations that I've been able to get into this year because of that Skidoo that I didn't think I could overcome. A prime example, I was up with Jamie Bruce. We did some backcountry stuff, winching ourselves over portages and going through a ton of slush to get to different situations. That machine performed, and that machine not only performed, but it got me to where I needed to go. And I really experienced a lot of different fishing scenarios that I wouldn't have been able to without that particular machine. And I've driven snowmobiles my whole life. And I just want to get your take. I know you're a huge Skidoo guy, kind of how you have yours tricked out. What are your thoughts on the machine that you're running this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a sled junkie in the way of like, knowing every spec and what engine and, all that stuff. But I do know that, what I see from in my travels, because, I get to fish with a lot of different people, right? So I see what they're using. I'm always taking note of what they're using, why, and asking lots of questions. I'm always asking questions. So I was up in Iqaluit, I mentioned earlier, on a shoot, and the guide, it was expeditions across the board, Skidoo expeditions. And it's like, okay, he's in like the most rugged terrain in the world, basically. And this is what the outfitter's using, not some weekend warrior. This is what the outfitter's using. So I'm like, okay, definitely took note of that. And then back in Northwest Ontario, my buddy Troy Mansfield, he used to be a sled mechanic in the mountains and, just an amazing rider. He owns, I don't know, like probably a dozen outpost camps, Winoga lodges around Sioux Lookout area. And he's always hauling propane and building cabins in the winter and working and doing all this stuff, right? Dealing with the harshest conditions as well. And he's like, he's an expedition guy. Like that's just his thing, right? So those two examples were enough for me that I'm like, my next sled needs to be an expedition. And it's just that reliability when you're out in the middle of nowhere. It's like, I love knowing that the sled is going to start every time. And I've like last winter we tested it. We were filming one of our competition series, and my fear at the start of getting a 4-stroke was, is it going to start in the cold? And that thing has not failed me once starting in the cold. So yeah, it's having the power, it's having the reliability and a studded track and a low gear and all these things that I didn't know at the start. But, I talked to my buddy Troy and he's like, okay, you want to get the 20-inch track, make sure it's studded. The low gear is going to be amazing when you're going on a portage and you don't want to tear it up. And these are things I didn't know, but I'm not the type of guy I don't go riding just for the sake of riding. I know that, the sleds are great for that. It's kind of the crossover, but I love it just for the utility of it, for taking a ton of gear, when I'm ice camping and taking so much gear and a camera guy and cots and foam mats and all that stuff. It's like the power. And it's just, it is fun to drive as well. I remember the first time getting it last year, I think it was the year before. And, driving on eco mode for the first month and being like, okay, this is enough power for me. I don't need any more power than that. I'm like, I don't trust myself to put it in sport mode. And they're just fun machines to ride.
Yeah. okay, the eco mode, sport mode, I can relate because there's so many times where I have my sleigh hooked up in the back, right, and we're going across the lake, and both my machines, I get people, whether it's my co-host or whoever's with me that week, gets to ride that machine, right, and I'm like you. I usually run it in eco mode because I'm not in a hurry to go somewhere. I'm ice fishing. I'm more worried about, a screen getting damaged on one of my electronics. And, I've gone 90 miles an hour across Lake Winnipeg and smashed everything I owned. Like, I don't need to go super fast. So I'm usually in eco mode. But of course, the person I'm with that week or whatever, they got to test out the machine. So, I'll jump on the next machine the next week and not even looking down, it's in sport mode. And I can't tell you how many times I've been pulling that sled behind me and I crack the throttle and the skis come off the ground and you're like, whoa, this must be in sport mode here. And it's just amazing the power and how responsive those machines are. Like you, Jay, I'm not a big motorhead. I have friends that they're friends of mine because we're good buddies in fishing, but also because they can work on stuff and they can fix things and they know how to, do stuff out in the wilderness that I just can't do. And that's just not my forte. But what I know is my Skidoo has gotten me out of a lot of situations that I would have been stuck out there had it not been that for that machine. And like you said, that 4-stroke, I was really concerned about having a 4-stroke because I've always had 2-stroke machines. And it's been 40 below Fahrenheit when I've been in areas, and that machine fires right up. I never have to worry about that thing leaving me stranded where I'm at. And you know what? Pulling slush and having sleds absolutely encompassed in slush and loaded down with gear. I'm like you. I've got to take everything, including camera gear, which, for most people, I think they're taking as much as they possibly can into their fishing situation. And a lot of times that weighs you down. And with the Skidoo, I've never had to worry about any of that. And the fact that giant cargo box, I can fit a 16-inch forward-facing sonar screen in there. I can fit Markham unit, what you name it. I mean, tackle boxes, tackle trays. I'm always bringing way too much stuff. And I absolutely love that machine. It'll be really hard for me to run anything else. It truly is. And it like you said, Troy Mansfield. I met Troy at a long time ago at a Winnipeg boat show one time.
Oh yeah.
And one of the nicest human beings on the planet. And
great.
Turns out he's from Minnesota originally. I asked him, how did you end up in Canada? He's like, I needed to marry my wife so I could get a moose tag. That's what I always remember about Troy.
That's great.
But
that sounds about right.
Someone like that uses it for outpost camps and uses it for just utility purposes only. I mean, me, other than fishing, I do cut a little bit of wood. So I'm out in the woods with my machines, cutting firewood from time to time. But I've never, ever worried about getting stuck. And, to be honest with you, I don't do a ton of snowmobiling outside of ice fishing. But I could see with this machine where you could ride for hundreds of miles and keep up with all of the, tricked out sleds that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Jay, I won't take up any more of your time. I appreciate you sitting down and talking with us. It's good to catch up with you. I know you're a busy man. You're busy, shooting all sorts of videos and fishing and raising a family. Just real quick, what's on the horizon for you, just in the next few months other than, I know you're heading to Europe. Is there anything else you're doing on ice close to home before you get ready for your big trip?
Oh man. The forecast is getting good. So I'm hoping to be out, I don't know, if every day or close to every day for the next little bit when it gets warm now. It's, I've become more of a fair weather fisherman now, living in Northwest Ontario and being able to cherry pick those days. So I don't have, some exploratory missions. I think I'm going to do some exploratory, looking for some black crappies around here, which is, always something I love to do. It's just something you got to carve time out for. And then, doing a trip to northern Manitoba at the end of April, but nothing too other than the northern Manitoba trip, not too much. Well, we'll see. Things always come up last minute, so I always like to leave a little bit of time in the schedule for an exciting opportunity. But I'm always exploring. So whatever's definitely going to cross some new lakes off the to-do list. That's for sure.
I know as the weather gets nice, my phone's starting to ring and text messages are coming in currently as we're recording a podcast of people saying, what's going on tomorrow? What are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing next week? And my buddies also are like thinking about calling in sick to work. And, I know this week is sort of my down week to get a few things done. I do have some guide trips on the books, but with the weather, I'm going to make time to do some fishing trips as well. Hey, Jay, thanks again for being on. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the easiest way to get a hold of you? What can they check out? Where can they find you?
Yeah, if you go to jaysiemens.com, that's kind of a hub for everything. It's got, links to my latest videos and contact there and everything else. Or Instagram's probably an easy way to get a hold of me as well. But if you want to watch some videos, then head over to YouTube. And typically I don't have a set schedule, but every week or two, there's typically something new to watch.
Awesome. Jay, thanks a lot, man. Hey, all the listeners out there, tune into Jay Siemens. He's always got new content coming out, some great videography, a lot of great just fishing information, but it's entertaining. Jay, I love your stuff. Thanks for being on.
Thank you so much.
The Dialed In Angling podcast. Hey, stay tuned. We got some fishing reports coming up. We've got more from Dialed In Angling after this. The cold months are rolling in, but that doesn't mean the adventure slows down. There's only one way to make the most of winter with the 2026 Ski-Doo lineup. Whether you're heading deep into your favorite fishing spots or carving your own path off the grid, Ski-Doo is built to take you there. And there's a reason Ski-Doo has been the best-selling snowmobile brand for more than 2 decades. Proven, reliable, world-class performance. Winter moves fast. If you want it, get it.
It's that time of year again, anglers. Winter is here, and L&M Fleet Supply is ready to make this your best season ever. Head into your favorite L&M Fleet Supply location across northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, or Michigan's UP, and browse the extensive collection of DeWalt tools and accessories, all guaranteed tough. Cut through the thickest ice with DeWalt's 20-volt drill. Brighten your setup with the assortment of 20-volt portable LED lights. And stay entertained with the DeWalt Bluetooth 20-volt speaker. It's weather-resistant, rugged, and ready for any adventure. Check out DeWalt's guaranteed tough deals and more at L&M Fleet Supply. Together, they're the perfect match for all your ice fishing needs.
Hey, Dialed In Angling fans. If you're looking for the greatest selection of ice fishing gear online, you're going to want to check out fishusa.com. They're America's tackle shop. They've got all the premier fishing brands under one roof. Check them out at fishusa.com. Fishing reports brought to you by Minnesota DNR Ice Safety.
Hey, it's Marcus Quam, Thrill Therapy Guide Service out of Webster, South Dakota. Fishing report for us over here has been kind of up and down with the weather. It seems like almost the nicer it got, the tougher it got. Shorter windows and earlier bites for the walleyes, that kind of stuff, but we still have been catching fish. We've had a nice mix of perch and walleyes, not so much on the same lakes or the same day, but still able to get some walleyes to go some days and perch. Big thing over here right now is our weather is getting pretty warm. We got some days in the 50s, so I don't know what our ice conditions are going to be like here in another 3 to 5 days. Kind of just taking it day by day now, but we're still going, and we're hoping that we can just squeak through till we have the next cold snap.
Hey guys, Brandon Olson here with Lockjaw Guide Service with an Otter Tail County fishing report. Ice conditions are awesome right now. We have about 25 to 28 inches of ice, no snow. And with the weather forecast, we're not going to have any snow coming for a while. It's going to warm up a little bit. Now, with that warm up, we are going to see some rise in those heaves on those lakes. So just be careful and make sure you're checking ice, especially around those heaves and danger spots. That warm weather makes that ice do some funny things. So fishing-wise, fishing has been great. We are seeing a little bit of a lull in the middle of the day with the panfish, unless you really want to get out and chase them down hard. But if you're looking to sit still, focus on those last few hours of light through the night into the morning, and then those first few hours of the morning as well. So a lot of our panfish are kind of split up right now between weeds, which are still bright green, and some of the basin fish. So you have a couple different options. You can kind of find some of your own areas and get away from the crowds and find some good pan fishing opportunities right now. Walleye side of things, we're seeing a split kind of bite between some deep stuff showing up. Tulipies are starting to show up in the hole, so we're finding some walleyes on those deep rock piles and deep sandbars and things like that. But we're still finding a lot of fish up in those weeds, man. They're green. There's lots of bait up there. Everything's really full of life right now. So there's plenty of walleyes up shallow with no snow cover. Use a ninja tactic. Get up there, be quiet, drill your holes early, get set, and just wait them out. Too much, you got to treat it like early ice, and too much walking around and making noise will spook those fish off. So if you guys want to come up and fish with us, you can check us out at www.lockjawguideservice.com, or you can call us at 218-640-0158. Thanks, guys.
Trig Road with TR Guide Service here in the beautiful Brandon Lakes area, and the weather has been absolutely beautiful. We're catching walleyes. Me and my rental houses have been out in a little bit deeper water, 28 to 31, 32 feet of water on inside turns and points is where we've been catching most of our walleyes, using pinks, golds, and green jig and spoons tipped with meadow heads. Our set lines have been catching quite a bit of fish too out in a little bit shallower water, using smaller rainbows and shiners as well to get those. The crappie fishing has been great. They're out suspended over the basins, using smaller spoons and tungsten and plastics to catch those, getting a few mixed in with the bluegills in a little bit shallower water and alongside those weeds, using smaller tungsten and plastics or tungsten Eurolarva to catch those ones. This is Trig Roach. We'll see you in the next one.
Hey guys, Remington Moran here with Elite Angling Adventures up on Leech Lake. Coming at you with a fishing report. The perch bite has been very good. We got two different types of things going on to catch the perch. We have kind of a shallower bite in that 11 to 14 foot of water up on top of the flats where the sandgrass and some of the remaining weeds are. Perch are up there eating the spring of the year perch, and there's some smaller minnows up there. And then we have a deeper bite going in that 16 to 18 feet of water where they're in them soft bottom areas where they are eating insects and vertebrates, stuff like that. And where you're finding the perch is where you're going to find your walleyes in that evening, overnight hours, as well as right away in the morning, as well as some eel pout showing up in those deeper areas as well. Yeah, that's what I got for you this week. Good luck and be safe.
All right, let's put a cap on this week's Dialed In Angling podcast. I want to thank Jay Siemens for jumping on the podcast with us. Great to talk to him, catch up with him. You know, he does a ton of dynamite videos, YouTube videos, all of that stuff. And it was great to catch up with him, have him on the podcast. Really appreciate him taking time to do so. You know, I want to dive a little bit into the episode that will be dropping this weekend. And then, of course, on Monday, I'm going to tease out a little bit of the episode. I ran up to Yellowbird Lodge. That's on the east side of Lake of the Woods. So Sioux Narrows area, if you're familiar with that side of Lake of the Woods, the Canadian side of Lake of the Woods, as you venture up towards Kenora through I Falls, Fort Francis, you'll go past, you know, the Totem Lodges, the Yellowbird Lodge. I had been there in the summer, had never experienced it in the winter. I highly recommend checking out this episode. It was really fun. It's just a great location. You know, they built sort of an ice business that's just over the border. It's crazy how close Sioux Narrows is to the, you know, Minnesota Canadian border. You know, if you take a look on the map, you know, and pull it up on your GPS, I mean, within 2 hours, you're literally at Yellowbird Lodge. And, you know, I knew that. It always seems like when I'm heading up to Kenora, you drive through Sioux Narrows, and as you leave I Falls, Fort Francis, you cross the border, you start venturing up towards Kenora, all of a sudden, boom, it always seems like you're in Nestor Falls, and then immediately you're in Sioux Narrows. And I've always loved that area for fishing. I have fished it a little bit on ice. You know, I remember doing a Rapala deal up there years ago where we fished lake trout and that sort of thing, but never done a ton of exploring. And, you know, it's cool to see. There are a few businesses around that area that are really promoting a winter business, building a winter business. Yellowbird is one of those locations where it's got a really, really nice bar, restaurant, lodge. You know, it's sort of designed for the entire family, not just anglers. They have an ice road out there. They rent fish houses out. So they've got some really nice wheelhouses that they rent. We didn't go that route with the Dialed In Angling episode. We took the skidoos, ventured out on the Lake of the Woods, and ended up fishing. You'll have to tune in for the fishing portion of it, but all I can say, it's a phenomenal destination. The fishing is incredible, and we had a great experience. So I encourage you to tune into this week's episode. Also, check out Yellowbird Lodge. It's really a cool location. I had a lot of fun doing it. I look back at this season, last season, the season prior, and kind of assess like what were some of the funnest, outings I had doing Dialed In Angling. And there's a number of them up there. This one, I really didn't have much for expectations going into it. I knew Lake of the Woods is phenomenal fishing. I knew we were going to accomplish that portion of it, because every time I'm on the Canadian side of Lake of the Woods, I'm always blown away at how many fish there are, how many different species there are. Lake of the Woods in general, the whole lake, South Shore included. I love getting up to Lake of the Woods. It's just one of the destinations that I love going, not just in the winter months, but summer months as well. You get on the Canadian side of Lake of the Woods, and it's much different than that South Shore. There's a ton of structure. You're not basin fishing. And really, the fishing's endless, and there's absolutely nobody around. It seems like as soon as you cross over that border, there's not a ton of people, and the options are endless, and you can just go explore. And, I like going this route where you go through an outfitter. The one thing about the Canadian side of Lake of the Woods is there's a lot of current areas, right? And so as long as you know where those are at, you stay on the snowmobile trails, you can explore. I mean, we went out, we probably ventured out, I would say, kind of in that 12 to 14 mile range where we rode on sleds to get out to some of these areas. And just within that drive, the amount of structure that we went over or close to on the GPS is mind-blowing. And you could have fished there for an entire winter and not touched all that structure. And so those possibilities lie. I'm always looking for new ice fishing opportunities. And, going back to my statement as far as where this ranks, as far as the last 3 seasons, it's right up there where I didn't have much expectations going into it. Now that I've been there, I want to get back. Yellowbird Lodge will definitely be on my list to get back to that location, because I want to explore more. You've got great lake trout fishing. You've got walleye fishing. You've got pike fishing. You've got crappies. You've got perch. You've got everything you want. You can do it in different days. You can go explore different regions within the day. It's all attainable either by snowmobile, and they do have that nice ice road out there. They've been maintaining it for the last few years. Kind of cool to see. So if you don't have snowmobiles, if you aren't able to tow things out and you need a vehicle, you can go fish some of their hard houses. You can drive out on your own. Pretty unique experience when you're talking Canadian fishing, because there's not a lot of destinations that you can do that. So super fun. I encourage you to tune into this week's episode. It was really fun to shoot. I need to get back up there. I love that area in the summer. There's a lot of areas where I have it marked on my GPS in my boat. I want to get back there, pull some of those GPS coordinates up, and go back to those locations at some point over the next few ice seasons. So I encourage you to do it. Check them out, Yellowbird Lodge. It was a great location. Tune into this week's Dialed In Angling episode. It drops this weekend. Appreciate everybody tuning in each and every week, and thanks for listening to the podcast. Until next week, I'm Tony Roach, and this has been the Dialed In Angling Podcast. Good luck fishing.